Sean, great that you could join us here today, and I'm really pleased to be able to introduce you, not only as the CEO of Aurora, which as you know we've just acquired, but also now in your new role as Head of CLM Advisory here in Delta Capita.
Thank you, Philip.
Welcome.
No, I'm thrilled. It's really exciting. It's great to be able to sit down with you and have this conversation about the value of Aurora and the power of DC.
Thank you. So tell us a bit more about what Aurora brings to DC.
Sure, that's an easy one. So I'll start with why we created Aurora, because we really felt, having come out of very large organizations, that there wasn't a consultancy in the market that was doing the top of the pyramid advisory conversations. We felt the Big Four did some of it, but it was a bit boilerplate. And what our clients really were looking for was expertise and wisdom of people that had really lived and breathed some of the pain points of CLM. And so Aurora, as you know, Philip, but for the people listening at home and watching on their screens, is about the end-to-end CLM story. So everything from pre-sales right through CRM, business acceptance, suitability, what I call the traditional onboarding story, AML, KYC, legal, credit, MDM, exit. So we look at things laterally, and often within our business, people look at things vertically. Now that gives us a huge opportunity as our collective organizations to drive value and growth for our clients. I think the other thing that I'm very proud of at Aurora is our people. So we are a people-centered business, and our values are actually very similar to your new values, where we are underpinned by trust and integrity and diversity in the workplace, and also in our thinking and the way that we approach the business. So yeah, it's an awesome business. We're proud to call ourselves the CLM experts. And long may that continue. I think together with our new DCG family, I think there's a lot we can do.
Great. Now, you know that we already have a very big CLM practice. We tend to obviously to focus on our managed services, our managed teams, helping clients with really their run the bank operations. What do you bring as a firm over and above that? Because I think it's important for everyone to understand how we now can offer lots more services together.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic question. So if we go back to what I mentioned earlier, if you think about how we position ourselves from a transformation perspective, so a macro story for our clients that may run beyond 36 months, and how we describe how we believe CLM hangs together. Previously as Aurora, what would happen is when it comes to things like augmentation or managed service, repapering, refresh, PR, we would work with other partners, so there would be off-ramps. Now that is a complete package within DC. So it's both length and breadth of the CLM journey that we can now service our clients with. Now I think that is incredibly unique in the market.
And as you know, we've been investing heavily in our own technology. And I think the nice thing that Aurora brings to us is a capability not only to help us deploy our own technology and prepare clients for that journey, but also I think you've got great experience of other market-leading products like Finergo and Pega, which will complement, because some clients do make that decision to go with other vendors, and we couldn't offer that service before. So tell us about your sort of expertise in that area.
Yeah, that's spot on. So I think what people often think about with Aurora is that we offer this advisory capability with our health checks and our operating model, but we are actually agnostic to solution up to a certain point in the journey. So we understand the big players in the market. We can offer RFIs, RFPs, clear choices for our clients to select technology, and they will come to us because of our experience in the market. But you're absolutely right, Philip. As the client selects technology, whether that's a Finergo or a Pega or an Appian, we know those solutions and we know what's under the hood. And so we can not only drive that story forward, but we can also help to configure and the SI work that sits behind it.
And of course, when you are helping those clients, there are components, as you know, our solution is modular, that may still be relevant, like our carbon outreach solution, even if they've picked another core CLM workflow tool.
Correct. I think the way that we see the market moving is it's expansive. I think we've gone through a phase in the early parts of the decade where people thought it was one size fits all. We are now in an entirely integrated business model with regards to APIs, with regards to integrations, and the way our clients see their landscape is entirely integrated. So yes, someone may select a piece of technology from the street, but Carbon can happily sit alongside that and work with it.
And of course, not only do we have our carbon suite of products, which we're very proud of, we also have Quinn, which I think you've come across, which may well be relevant to servicing of client demand either for onboarding or client queries.
Yeah, I think that's fundamental.
Yeah.
In my mind, as you kind of go down the pipe about how CLM works from the beginning, as I've described, what we're trying to do is drive three things. We're trying to drive customer experience, we're trying to enable the front office, and we're trying to embed harmonization and standardization. With the suite of tools that DC has, now with Aurora, we can describe that to our clients as an end-to-end story. And as I say, I think that is incredibly compelling in the market.
Now, I think you have done quite a lot of configuration work in the past, but you couldn't offer that whole systems integration capability with technology that I think we can also bring together now. And I think that's going to be nice to be able to leverage our capability both onshore and offshore. I think there's a big demand for that in the market.
There's a huge demand for that in the market, and you're completely right. So where we have been very focused on our business analysts being on the business side, we now have the depth to go into that technical side. So you're right, we can really push into that SI story in a way we couldn't before. So as I've mentioned previously, the beauty of this relationship is the off-ramps that were always with another organization now stay within the DC family.
Great. I wanted just to explore one other topic, because you mentioned you're a people-centric organization. Of course, we are too. Tell us a little bit about what that means to you, because you've been an industry practitioner, I've been an industry practitioner, and most of the people who run our CLM business have come having experience in wholesale or investment banking, client onboarding and client KYC. Tell us a bit about your team, your leadership team, and how they also bring those areas of expertise.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think for us, we have built Aurora around talent and wisdom. And talent and wisdom comes from everyone. So what our EDI strategy and about how we are approaching the market is really a very expansive approach, which is we just see talent and we want the right people in the right roles. If you think about, we're a small organization, and to get the best talent, we have to compete with the market. So for Aurora to be able to bring in the people that it has, we have had to focus very heavily on the individual. What do the individual need, wellness, approach, career direction, etc. And I think we've done a fantastic job. And I think aligned to what DC have, we can amplify that. So I'm very excited about what we can do together, especially in the EDI space, to really ensure that people have the opportunity to grow and we bring in the right talent.
Brilliant. Now, you mentioned that we have similar values, and you know our values are all around courage, integrity, teamwork and excellence. I think there is a high degree of overlap, so I'm sure your employees will feel welcome here. But I wanted just to explore this topic of courage, because you and I both worked inside banks, and I think we've seen more recently a sort of lack of courage sometimes from clients, because they've got so many hurdles internally to get over, and that's why we as DC are operating the way we do. We feel through our whole vision of providing these managed services to clients, that courage, we can do that for them, and then instead of them having to buy a specific technology solution which can be difficult to implement themselves, we take away that headache away from them. Is that a trend you see when you talk to clients as well?
Yeah, I think so. I think courage is a great word. What we have to remember about our clients is they are incredibly sophisticated, and the pressures that they have are a myriad of pressures that are on them. If we can provide them with the support and the ambition to do what they need to do, underpinned by mutualization, underpinned by the ways that we can maybe nearshore something, offshore something, remove a bit of technology, but with the confidence that DC has institutional scale, then I think that's a great way forward. And as I've mentioned, technology in the past was very much a one-size-fits-all. I think not only technology has become this kind of open source, but thinking to become open source. And ultimately, it's how we help our clients do that.
So Sean, tell us a bit about how you came across DC and why you're looking to sell your company to DC.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think this comes down to network, Philip. So a mutual colleague, Gary McClure, who I used to work with at HSBC, he approached me and to see whether we were interested in moving forward and what our strategy was. And I guess there was a very nice fit as we started to have this conversation. And it's always underpinned by culture. You've got to have a feel that two things are going to work together. And we immediately got that cultural fit which I really liked, because at the end of the day, I'm going to bring my organization into yours and it has to work. I think what's very important for us was for us to really demonstrate that we're the CLM experts, we need scale, we need geographical footprint, and we need services and products.
Yeah.
Now, we have some of those, and we were on a path to get those other components. But the reality is, by working with DC, we could massively amplify that story and to realize that ambition for the market.
And of course, with all of our MSAs, both here in the UK, in Europe, in Asia, and in the US, I think you have global ambitions to really grow this business from one that started in the UK to really a global offering.
100%.
So I know you're looking forward to being on the plane.
I'm looking forward to being on the plane. You're right, Philip. I think we have talked about this, and I think you and I are shoulder to shoulder in how we can realize the ambition of the Aurora service set into something much greater in a very short period of time. So that's going to be super exciting. So Philip, I've got a question for you. So thinking about all the things we discussed this morning, how do you think the combination of our organizations drives forward kind of our competitive advantage in the market?
Well, as you probably know, Sean, our CLM business is already part of our financial crime business, but it's already our biggest business here in DC. So you are joining an already successful business and one that we think is very relevant to our clients. You know what our vision is in DC, which is to be relevant in 4 areas, of which CLM is the largest at the moment. And we want to continue to be more relevant to those clients. So all the points you were talking to me about earlier, about the fact that we can now go in and advise clients before they've made their technology decision, not assume they're ready to make a technology or a service decision, I think is spot on. So that the enhancing that front end of the process, the target operating model, the RFI, the RFP, often we're the recipient of that, but we're not doing it for clients, and that's where I see huge value. But over and above that, the elements of doing system integration, the configuration of other people's products, as well as of our own, I think is a massive additional value service we can bring to clients. And with our technology prowess, I think you will be confident that we will develop that expertise and be competitive versus anybody on the street.
Fantastic, thank you. So Philip, obviously this is exciting times for Aurora, but you've had a very busy year with regards to acquisitions.
We have.
Which is amazing. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about how those acquisitions hang together to help you drive the bigger strategy for Delta Capita?
Absolutely. Well, as you're probably aware, we are trying to build a business that has sustainable relevance to our clients. Our vision as a business is to reinvent the financial services value chain. That is what our mission and vision is, to do that. And what does that really mean? It means we want to be deeply embedded with our clients and running core areas of process and technology for those clients, absolutely the heart of what they do, but maybe not why any of their clients go to them, so the non-client differentiating areas. Yeah. So as an example, we've talked a bit about the CLM world. We don't think anybody really goes to a Goldman Sachs or a Morgan Stanley or an HSBC because they have a great KYC process. We think they go because of their products, their pricing, their distribution, all those reasons. Yeah. So if we can do something for a client and do it consistently across multiple clients, we think that's the new breed of technology and operations and of services that clients want. We sort of call it infrastructure 3.0. Sometimes we refer it to a business operating platform as a service. And we think it's a different model from traditional either outsourcing or BPO. We think this is a very clever model where we are using the same technology configured in the same way and ultimately underpinning consistent process at clients. So that is our North Star. To get there, of course, though, we need expertise in the 4 areas we've chosen to compete in at the moment. And those 4 areas are obviously the financial crime that I've mentioned and CLM, but they're also post-trade. They're also our middle office structured products business, which is already operating very much in this mode. And then finally, it's the trading, pricing and risk areas. Now, many people look at me and say, trading, pricing and risk, surely that's core. Well, the answer is, it used to be core, but with the regulatory changes we've seen in the market, actually, most people are now defaulting to the same standardized risk models. Therefore, you don't need your own risk quants and you don't need your own risk infrastructure. So all of these areas have those common characteristics of their core, but they're not client differentiating anymore. And so we want to be really strong in those. And the fact that Aurora joins our financial crime team is absolutely in that vein of saying we need that expertise and we have to recognize that we are a competitor to established providers out there, and we therefore need a strong advisory practice in the domain of financial crime and CLM, and that's what we see in Aurora. So, Sean, I mean, I'm often asked this question, but let me ask you what you see as the biggest market challenges, and then maybe I'll respond and how we maybe we can align a bit out that.
Of course. I think from an advisory perspective and from the CLM story, you have to remember that KYC in its current shape and form is actually in its infancy if you compare it to something like payments. This is something that from the beginning of the 2000s is an industry that has grown and bloomed. It's still in its infancy, and in some ways, people are still finding their way. What we see really is, unfortunately, there's a lot of churn and change in our market. When you have a lot of churn and change, you get new leaders come into businesses that have a different direction or a different path to take with regards to their CLM practice. So a lot of the big challenges we often see is around people. The second piece of that is the technology and the processes that underlie that. So what we have to be careful of as an industry is a lot of kind of blue sky thinking, when actually some of the fundamentals that I think we've talked a little bit about still need to be addressed and fixed. So it's about ensuring that we get the base right in CLM across the journey.
Sometimes it's always about the base.
It's always about, sometimes it's always about that great song lyric, Philip. But then being able to go forward and say, if we get these base components right across people, process, IT, we can then build and achieve those bigger things that the industry is talking about. So we have to do things in parallel, and that's often difficult. It would be easy if you had leaders that stayed in roles. But obviously, you have an additional complexity that you have leadership that changes. So that hasn't changed for me in the last 15 years. And that's one of the things you have to manage. I feel that collectively within our organizations, that's something we can really grasp. And they are complicated conversations, but we have to have the faith that we have the wisdom to be able to tackle that.
Great.
That's my take. What's your take?
My take is similar, and obviously I'd like to just extrapolate that a bit more broadly and say what I see clients grappling with now is, since really 2012, as the various regulatory UK Banking Reform Act, and we've had Dodd-Frank, and all these acts have come in, we've got increased regulatory pressure. The margins are ever thinner. We thought regulation might come and go, but it's still coming. And therefore, people are struggling to find the amount of money they need to really focus on the areas that are client differentiating, because they're still being burdened by heavily regulated areas. And that's where we think we can help more broadly solve that problem. So I do think that the CLM practice is a great example of that. I mentioned our structured products, where we're servicing multiple banks on common technology and common process. You get real scale efficiencies. And you just take that problem away, because we are not a regulated body, but we behave almost like we are. And we recognize that we have to behave in a way that our clients would expect us to. That regulatory pressure and scrutiny clients are under is so intense, I think it causes a very risk-adverse approach. And that's why I mentioned the word courage before, because courage is what I think we need to have to take some of those problems on for clients and do it. And because we're a small but fast-growing organisation, we're more nimble and able to effect change, and we're less subject to the quarterly earnings challenges that banks are, so the annual headcount freezes that you'll remember fondly from HSBC and other banks, where you come back from your summer holiday and find that you can't now actually hire anybody. We don't operate like that. We operate in a much more programmatic way, and our client commitments are honoured, and that's where I think we have a unique model, because we will take away some of the transformation risk away from clients, which frankly used to be a competitive advantage of the banks and has become less and less a competitive advantage of the banks.
Yeah, totally agree. You mentioned something quite interesting there around courage, and I'll come back to that. Because of our agnostic nature in the market, and we probably talk to north of 50 banks a year, often a lot of senior people in banks say, what is the bank across the street doing? And that comes down to the courage, because you're right. When you think about the regimes like SMF and you think about the regulations that are in place, there's not a lot of wiggle room. And so that ambition and courage often comes from somebody else doing something different. What I think we can bring from our advisory perspective in that conversation is to say, have the courage, because the industry is moving forward and people are challenging some of the norms to get some of this stuff done. So I think that's very exciting. I think we can help facilitate that. Thanks, Philip. So I think to close out, I guess the big question is, what's next for Delta Capita?
Well, we don't stand still, Sean. I'm sure you've realised that we've been doing a lot of acquisitions prior to this. We've also been growing rapidly this year organically, and we've also done some significant lift outs from clients. We are going to do another one of those, which we hope to be able to announce towards the end of November. That will be another transformational trade for us. In addition, we're in the process of 2 further acquisitions over and above Aurora, one of which is in the CLM space, and I think that will fill out our technology capability and allow us to be able to go into any bank, whether it's retail, wholesale, wealth, and be able to deal with the individual ID&V challenges as well as the corporate complex clients that you and I are used to dealing with. I think that will give us the full service offering in our CLM business, and the other acquisition is in the trading, pricing and risk area.
Right. Awesome. Thanks for chatting this morning.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.